About bread and condensed milk sandwiches is you can read with the weird.
Ladies and gentlemen, meet Lenny Henry, the star of Amazon Prime's Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, coming to you this week on the 1st or the 2nd of September, depending on where you live in the world. And yes, check this footage out. He is the champion of truth, justice, and the diversity way. Oh, Henry, Sir Lenny Henry. Boy, oh boy, have I seen some really cringe things to do with the Amazon Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power TV show coming out. It's going to be out on the 2nd of September, folks, the day that, rest his soul, Professor Tolkien passed away. So here we have from Deadline, because it's a reliable trade rag in terms of what's going on in the film industry, the Lord of the Rings star. He's not a star, he's a bit part player in the show. Sir Lenny Henry applauds Amazon's move away from Tolkien's fair-skinned characters to diverse cast. First of all, that in itself is a slightly racist statement and a comment, because you're saying, well, you know, forget about the fact you're Caucasian. You know, you've got to make way for us folks, you know, the slightly darker hue to take center stage and to be loved and applauded for our craft. It's a really awful take, and I'm going to go back to something I mentioned quite a few months ago. In fact, I meant to mention it in October 2021 when the news broke that he was going to be playing a Harfoot. So Sir Lenny, he's a veteran British comedian. Okay, well, that's a debatable one anyway. In fact, didn't they once call him the British Eddie Murphy? I have no idea where they plucked that one from. PR was so desperate in those days, they would say anything to make people believe what you heard was true. Jesus Christ. So Henry plays Sadok Burrows, a Harfoot, a proto-hobbit. Of course, again, the Harfoots were just never around at that point. They were buried deep down in the underground doing whatever. You know, they didn't come until the Third Age. So in Amazon's big budget show, which launches this Friday, and which has diverted from both Tolkien's original books and the Hollywood films with their mainly fair-skinned characters, Henry told the Times, that's to do with it being the 21st century. People want to see themselves. Of course, if you go back, there's going to be that thing that prevails, because the books don't say, although some of the characters are described as hard-skinned and darker in complexion. So immediately, your assumption is, well, they can't be whiteys, they've got to be this complexion, or maybe darker. I don't know, you tell me. But that was then, this is now, and we're telling the story now, bitches. That's basically what he's saying. After decades spent campaigning for greater diversity in the entertainment industry, where he was one of the few black faces, I'm going to get to that phrase in a minute, by the way. I didn't see anybody in charge of anything that looks like me for a very long time. How dare they? So that is lonely, he told the Times. You've got all these people now saying the same things I started saying in 2000, which is, the industry needs to change, and can it hurry up, please? Please, industry, stop being racist towards us. Can you hurry up, please? That is a pack of bullshit, Mr. Henry. It absolutely is. From a guy like him who is playing the major hypocrite angle right now, and I'm going to get into this as a bit of a refresher for you guys. So back in the 70s, he was the headlining act on a show called New Faces, and basically did an impression of Frank Spencer from Some Others Do Have 'Em. And it was a clever entrance, actually, because you just saw this guy from behind, behave yourselves, with a beret on, and he was just going, hello, Betty. And then when he turned around and he saw it was a black man, it was like, oh my God, this guy is so funny. That's how he got his break as a comedian. And then he appeared in shows like The Fosters, and which was actually funny for its time. Probably might be dated now if you watched it again, perhaps. I don't know, really. And then he was on, was it Three of a Kind with Tracy Ullman and the other bloke that I keep forgetting the name of, David something or another. So he talks about diversity now, but Lenny Henry was anything but diverse in the early part of his career. Now, I mentioned the blackface phrase earlier on in this article here. So this is an excerpt from Film 89 with Barry Norman, the late great Bazzo himself. And Lenny Henry was making this film called True Identity, which got released in 1991. Bit of a precursor as to what's going on, guys, because you are going to love this. So, True Identity. In order to escape from the mob, an African-American man, played by a British black man, must disguise himself as, wait for it, a white man. Wow, you couldn't make it up, folks. It's right here in black and white. That was not meant to come out that way, but I'm just saying because it's factually very true. Black background, white font. Okay, before you're starting the rage boxes there. Right, so let's just go back to this and witness. Remember what I said to you before? The blackface.
Just soak up all the makeup, so you have to seal it, and then you can start making it up, and that's when you start putting in all the skin tones.
No, man.
You got to put on the skin tones. You got to get the skin tones right. I love that dreamy music they're playing in the background.
So this is what white people do every morning.
Yeah, so I'm a white person, but I put on white makeup every morning before I go out to work. Okay. Sounds like a very bitter black man there, actually, Mr. Henry.
Lenny Henry plays tapes of Steve Martin to help him get into character.
Being trapped in the mask is, in some ways, feels pretty kinky. There's restricts and, in some ways, feels pretty kinky. There's...
Now, I'll give him this much. He does look like Steve Martin. The special effects here I thought were going to be a lot more cringier, but they're pretty good. His American accent or his impression of the great Steve Martin, it's not very good. It really isn't. And the fact that they're billing him as an African-American man played by a Brit who... And you got to remember back then, there weren't many actors who could pull off the American accent anyway. You either could or you couldn't, and he definitely could not do that. But, you talk about the blackface. And, it's very interesting because you got to read some of the comments here, actually. And I thought there was a really good one that stood out for me. Let me just see where they said it. Yeah. If that was a white actor putting on a black makeup or black mask, whatever you want to call it, all hell would break loose. Double standards again. It's true. It's true. I mean, Robert Downey Jr. famously did it in Tropic Thunder, and but Jamie Foxx, give him a lot of credit. He liked his portrayal because Robert Downey Jr. was very careful how to play it, and being a moron at the same time. His character of being a moron when he stepped in as Lazarus, was it not Lazarus Pit? It was Lazarus something. But that's kind of like his approach to it, and he got an Oscar nomination as well, didn't he? Which I thought was hilarious. You're not going to get that again, are you?
To save his skin. He's black. He's white. Almost white, that is. He's whoever he's...
Wow, he's in the toilet, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, dear. Oh, I remember this joke, actually.
He's white.
He's almost white, so the one thing they forgot to cover up. Oh, dear. How do you explain that one? And he kind of looks a little bit like Tim Allen here before we even knew who Tim Allen was, which I thought was a little bit strange. A cross between Tim Allen and Alan Rickman from Die Hard.
Almost white, that is. He's whoever he's got to be to stay out of sight. He becomes the man of 1,000 faces, giving the performances of his life. He even becomes the godfather of soul, James Brown's bogus brother, to save his soul. Get down. Wow, this guy should be on parole, though. Keep it down.
I've got to say that probably the other form of prejudice you would notice from these earlier films, like if you're casting a black actor in a major American film, you couldn't cast a white woman against them, like if they were going to be a potential love interest. It'll be, no, you can't do that. That's going to enrage people. Although I know Dennis Haysbert and Michelle Pfeiffer did that in The Love Field, which was about the the aftermath of the assassination of John F. Kennedy. And I thought it was a really good film, and I thought the two leads were fantastic. You know, Michelle Pfeiffer going against the grain, doing something a little bit different. I think there was some minor backlash about it, but people forgot about it. And I think if you go back to the film now, you can really appreciate it for what it was trying to do back then. Because, you know, I'm all about the mixed relationships, I am. It's really funny that Deadline kind of misquoted that phrase, the blackface phrase. And I want to take you to one more thing. So Sir Lenny Henry, yep, you know, it's all about diversity now. We need to get our turn in the spotlight. So, you know, screw you, you know, you white folks, you know, you've had it longer than we had. Now, let us just step in and do this. But this is a show, or a children's show, Tiz Was, which started, I think, in the very late 70s into the early 80s. God, I love Sally James on that show. Gosh, the only reason why I watched it, actually. But anyway, watch this.
See you, Nutter. Once upon a time, there was a West Indian bus conductor named Dudar collecting his fares on the bus, and he collapsed and died.
Yeah, I've got to point something out here, folks. Maybe I should have put a disclaimer at the beginning of this. This is the 1980s, guys, and this was the form of humor that was accepted back then. So Lenny Henry embraced that humor and decided to make fun of, well, a Chinaman, a Japanese man, whatever your take is on that. But now, many years later, he's the first half-foot of colour in J.R.R. Tolkien's, you know, the white professor J.R.R. Tolkien's literary works, as something that wasn't part of his literary works at that moment in time. So it's really rich of him to say that, and I'm betting, like Sophia Non-Betty, he's only going to be in the series for maybe 3 episodes, and that's it. No one's going to really give him monkeys. He might give a good performance, but are you telling me that you're going to be walking away thinking about how great Sir Lenny Henry was in that portrayal of Sir Haddock, or whatever the hell his character's name is? I've already forgotten it because it's not memorable like Frodo Baggins or Samwise Gamgee or Gandalf the Grey. You know, it's not memorable like those. Or here they call him the Ranger. You know, you're not going to get those characters. You remember those characters in that way, which is what I'm trying to say, but whoever he's playing, you're just not going to remember it, are you? 5 minutes from now, you'll be like, yeah, 3, 2, 1, okay, I'm done now. So folks, if you enjoyed this video today, make sure you leave a like below, make sure you comment, and if you want your name in the credits on the old roll-up, make sure you tell me that too. And if I were you, and if you were me, make sure you check out my next video.
Can you name me the contents of this bucket?
No, I'll pass.